Okay, while doing landscape, yard work, and anything else, maybe like a handyman, and having Mike Bomer as my partner and his wife Joanne, partners, we came across many things, and he had a lot to teach me from the Bible. And he taught me one day when the Mormons came over and knocked on his door while I was eating dinner with them. Mike and I were approached by two Mormon disciples one day. I wasn't as well prepared to discuss theology with him, but Mike was. I learned something that day that is so basic yet so often missed by people who profess to follow their religious precepts, even Christians. If you want to find out what the Bible or any book says, read it. Let the words say what they mean. These Mormons were not prepared for a single passage that Mike so clearly repeated that was directly in contradiction to everything that they held to. Yet it was right there in the Bible that they professed to go by alongside their Book of Mormon. They used the King James Version, which is a good version, it's just in an archaic language. Mike said, "For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this not from yourselves, it is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast." He quoted that. Mike says, "You see that you are not saved by anything you do, but by faith alone. That's what this is saying." He focused on the plain meaning of the words contained in this great passage, defining each clearly from a dictionary. This is Ephesians 2:8 and 9. Ever since then, I knew that the truth was right there available to everyone if you simply followed the normal rules of language, context, and logic that we learned in school, and then bothered to actually read the book in the order that it was written. Mike stunned the two of them, and they never recovered from this plain and simple passage in subsequent meetings. The key is to pay close attention to the words themselves and not override them with your own thoughts and agenda, i.e., let the words say what they mean. Mike constantly reminded our two Mormons of this principle and this very passage, and they stopped coming by, for they obviously had run out of answers. So getting to the truth of the matter was not all that difficult. Chapter 10. Temporary life begins at Hubble. A large part of America's workforce, and then, and is perhaps now, is now temporary. Is it a 21st? Question is it a 21st century phenomenon, or the same old thing under another name? The concept of a company drawing on a pool of workers trained in various office tasks as if needed them sounds like a brilliant solution to age-old problems in the workplace. Should save money to boot, no benefits to pay out. Ask the average philosopher on the street about this and you get, people will be people, and water seeks its own level. So here we go. This people found his own level at assignment number 1. I work for a temp agency. They assigned me to Norrell. Norrell Temp Agency assigned me to Hubble Lighting. They gave me this assignment as a packer sitting at a table. That's what they told me. All of a sudden, first day there, I find myself standing on a high-rise forklift, shoulder to shoulder with a tobacco-chewing order-picking man. I didn't think I'd last a day with a roller coaster ride, trying not to fall out or throw up, because this was a forklift that went up and down to high-rise pallet racks and forward as well. And that styrofoam cup that Kevin spat tobacco juice in was right under my nose. Hard to believe someone would take all that raw tobacco and roll it up with bubble gum in a huge wad and shove it into his mouth. All day, every morning, first thing. I didn't fall off the truck. I didn't throw up, and I got my truck driving license. Fork truck. So I was pulling orders for myself in no time, and I didn't have to chew tobacco or bubblegum. When Norrell found out that I was driving a forklift, they told me they already had qualified drivers. They tried to remove me from the assignment. These little people following me around everywhere, trying to put some obstacles in my path. But it was too late. I'd already received my forklift license and was on my way down the aisles as a full-fledged high-rise order-picking man without the tobacco. So they gave me a 75-cent raise instead of letting me go. Weren't they nice? That first week I made a few mistakes. The left side of every aisle had the alphabet going backwards. Some idiot couldn't figure out that both sides would be viewed forward going in the same direction. And Cecil left it that way. That man wouldn't change his underwear unless he had to. Every time I made a mistake, the packer would yell at me so everyone in the world could hear. His words were echoed by everyone else. I had my own personal drill sergeant. Stop everything. Take your truck out of the aisle. Face public ridicule. Put the wrong part back. Go get the right part. Move it. Move it. I watched Billy, the best picker. I noticed that he used a pad to organize his orders by location. I took the hint and made up a form for 10 orders. Cecil insisted I was wasting my time. So I did my thing hidden inside aisle B and C. Cut down the ridicule a whole lot because I wasn't doing as many mistakes. Everyone became impressed with my production, and Cecil had less to find fault with. No one did 10 orders but the new guy, me, with speed. Pete came out one day to pat me on the back. Traps. But there were all those hidden traps. Put the forks in those rectangular holes, not under the shelving unit. No one told me that. Billy didn't do it that way. Otherwise, you turn the corner, the shelving unit tips over, falls with a huge crash, and parts go streaming everywhere. This was spectator sport for the crew. Set me up and laugh. One more inch and the shelving unit would have made it into the parking lot, right through the window wall. Just another lesson in public ridicule. The new guy. No way I could crawl under a rock with all that noise and mess. Trap 2 is poetic. Don't use large trucks in aisle A, because building columns are in the way. The guys set me up in this one. They said, use truck number 2, they said. I hit the building column full speed when I backed out. That column launched a fire extinguisher from the column, hanging on it, toward the boss's office like a cruise missile. So it slammed into his door, and Pete came out of his office like it was shot from a cannon, calling my name before he figured out what had happened. All the guys in the packing area couldn't stop laughing for days. The fire extinguisher barely had a scratch on it. Fortunately, it didn't go off, but the wall had memories in it. Trap 3. Aisle R was built too wide, so use the fork extenders or you'll be fit to be tied. The first time down that aisle, I got an order for large outdoor light fixtures. I picked up the pallet, but the forks were short of the last runner underneath, so it tipped 20 degrees. And it sounded like cymbals crashing on the floor, one after the other. All those lighting fixtures. It was a 5-minute concert. Kevin came by to help. It was hopeless. I looked down from my perch on the left, wondering if I should bother coming down, flinching as each cymbal hit the floor. I thought my paycheck was gone, and the job too, but Cecil owned up and told Pete he didn't tell me about the aisle. All those broken light fixtures stayed on the return pallet for months to remind me of my concert debut. After this, there began a deep rift between Cecil and myself. He was like a drill sergeant, bent on destroying a recruit deemed unworthy of combat. Trap number 4. Don't stand on your head anymore. It always annoyed Pete's secretary when one of us entered her domain to get some change for the vending machine at break time. This was her assigned task, but it didn't motivate her to do it willingly. One day the boys in the back said it was my turn to get change for everyone. I collected all their bills and walked there, where I had never walked before, to the front office. I got a lecture seasoned with belittling remarks from the Queen, so I did the worst thing I could have ever done. I tried to humor her. Should I stand on my head? She looked at me with what I thought was a go-ahead. I stood on my head. Everything fell out of my pockets. I got all the change I needed, upside down, and I spied my cohorts looking through the door, laughter on their faces. I became an instant hero with the guys, but this turned south. Pete asked that I not get change anymore. Leave it to others to come to the front office and stay on my feet at all times. But I was now one of the guys now. That was confirmed when they took my street clothes, stuffed them with peanuts, the plastic packing peanuts, and hung me from the ceiling. Cecil smiled at that one. Pete said he liked me and offered to hire me as soon as he got unanimous approval from everyone in the front office. Like that was going to happen. Why do you ask the secretaries if I should be hired, and if they say no, you're not? Trap number 5. ILS is a beam on a line, so you'll hit your head on it every time. I don't know why the beam was so low. When you got a pick there, you conked your head. Scary because you're 20 feet above the ground feeling woozy. I pointed this out, but Cecil took perverse pleasure in refusing to fix it. I was told that if I changed it, I'd be fired. I put warning signs up, but Cecil came right behind me and took them down. So every week, he rejoiced when I rang my bell. I do things like that. Can't remember random stuff that gets in the way. I even have warning signs in my own apartment to make it safe for dummies. I suppose if I hadn't made Cecil look so bad in aisle R, he might have moved the beam. I never did find out where his desk was. Somewhere in the old warehouse. Strange. He wasn't always walking a straight line when he came out of that corner. So now we know what he was doing. Talking about my faith. Well, I spent a little time talking about my faith there at Hubble Lighting. Billy spoke to me of going through an AA program in the 12 steps, and some of the guys had a flicker of interest. Most avoided me when I opened up one of my textbooks for my seminary coursework. I started doing seminary. José told me I wasn't using a Holy Bible because it didn't have the word holy on the front. I said, it does. I just put a book cover on it to protect it. He said, you shouldn't have done that. Now it weren't no good no more. The sales manager came over once when I was reading on lunch break in my Bible studies and ridiculed one of my books and challenged me to come up with one Bible verse that mentioned a particular word I was studying called dispensation. When I did show him, he got angry. Boy, the Bible seems to polarize people and cause some to think it strangely. With dim prospects of the front office voting me permanent, I took a job at Home Depot in the hopes of getting something steady. Temp man for sale or rent. Jobs to let, low percent. Now this was a permanent job. Chapter 11, Home Depot. Grandma. I work with Grandma. Retail is not for me, but I thought the depot was different. They gave me a great PR talk about my future with the company. So I signed up for training. And they put me right in the garden department, in the insecticide suicide aisle. Breathe that stuff? Yeah. 8 hours a day breathing orthene and diazinon. The rule was to rotate. I was never assigned anything outside of the poison aisle. I went home every day with a headache and a sore throat. Grandma stayed as a fixture outside in the nursery. Plants were in disarray. Those that needed sun were put in shade, and vice versa. Price tags were 99% wrong, because Grandma wanted to do her own thing. So when a shipment for the nursery came in, Grandma was in charge. If it was heavy packs of bark chips, I was called. Grandma pointed where to put them. When a customer purchased marble chips or fence sections, who do you think Grandma called? That was her job. My aisle was neglected. I had to help the queen all the time. That always put me in jeopardy when managers inspected my aisle. When plants arrived, Grandma directed it all. She was the manager's pet, even made salesman of the month. When the plant truck came, she would have me unload one pallet at a time. She took her sweet time spreading the plants all over the nursery. One pot here and one pot there. How do you find anything? Find one here, then you look for more? Shade plants were mixed with sun-tolerant ones, with no consideration as to plant needs. And I stood idly by till Her Majesty ordered the next pallet to be unloaded. The driver thought we were all nuts. No telling customers where anything was. It was just all over. Topical plants were put on shelves too low for them, so the tops were cut off. Plants died for lack of sun or water. I had no idea what prices were or where anything was. I began to duck her requests. Trucks never cease. My assigned duty was the insecticide aisle. Customers were not being attended to in my aisle. I had to attend to her customers' needs. Stock piled up in my aisle. I started unloading the plant truck all at once so I could get back to my job breathing in diazinon. I tried to get Grandma to understand that if customers came in to look for marigolds, they should be in one area. She got angry and broke down in tears. So the manager came over to me, scolded me for making her cry. He promised it would not last long unless I changed my attitude. Question, was he saved? I was assigned one day to help with the lawnmower aisle. My co-worker was all bubbly about being saved. I was all excited about meeting someone to share my faith in Christ with. So I asked him how he got saved, and he became highly agitated. He told me he got delivered from drugs. I said, wow, that was great. What verse in the Bible did your pastor share with you when you got saved from drugs? John